Welcome all to another episode of Homeo Mitra Vartalap. Today's topic is nothing that you have not heard of, but there will be many things that you would still not have heard of. The topic is called as medical nutrition therapy. In that, we are going to speak about onconutrition or the nutrition therapy given to cancer patients. Now, who is going to talk about this is a specialist in this particular field. Her name is Dr. Kruti Dhirwani. She is a homeopathic doctor. She has done her MD in homeopathy and she has done her master's in science in dietetics and food service management. Uh, she is a doctor, she is a clinical dietitian, she is an onconutritionist and health and wellness speaker. She is the founder of magicofmom.com and Care Shakti. She is the author of the book Millets, the trending ancient grains. And she is also a freelance writer. So, Dr. Kruti, I hope I have done justice to introducing.
Absolutely. You said, I think you've covered everything. And thank you for having me over. And I'm happy for this opportunity to be on your platform, Vartalab. And I'm happy to share my insights on this topic.
Great, great. Honor and pleasure to have you over here. So we'll start with the podcast and we'll
Sure.
start with the very first questions. To know a bit more about you is, despite of being a doctor, why did you pick up, why did you choose to study and practice nutrition?
So, Dr. Kure, I started my homeopathic practice back in 2009. And that time I was having 4 clinics all over Mumbai. And out of which one of was a charitable clinic. So I was very fortunate to see a lot of patients early on in my practice. But as years passed by, and I saw that some of the patients were not getting completely cured, they used to come back with similar complaints, similar symptoms. And as young doctors, we always first thing is we doubt ourselves that what went wrong, did my medicine did not work, or did I overlook something, did I not take the case properly. So what I decided to revisit those cases whichever were coming back with the similar symptoms. On revisiting the casing, reanalyzing the cases, what I saw that most of the cases had lifestyle errors, particularly in and around diet. And counseling each and every patient in a clinical setup was very difficult because it would take a lot of effort and a lot of time. So then I decided to start with patient education workshops. So I would do live interaction with patients and would educate them about the lifestyle changes that are required in certain diseases. And again, in when I was doing these interactions, patient would have queries and they were asking me more about food, nutrition, diet, and well, some of which I was able to answer. But at some point, I felt my knowledge was limited. Food is universal. We all eat food. I mean, irrespective of your culture, irrespective of the state that you live in, or irrespective of the country that you're from, we all eat food, and food is something common to all of us. So I thought that yes, we need to go a little bit deeper into what is the impact of the food that we are eating on our health. And we know the saying, we are what we eat. So, and medical practice or medical education does not cover nutrition in so much detail. So since then, I decided that okay, let's see which are the possible courses that I can do to enhance my knowledge in this field.
One of the reasons which I felt like taking up this topic is now I recall one of the anecdotes we had in our pre-podcast talk is you talking about cases of diabetes who were having high blood sugar despite of medication, not being able to control their blood sugar.
Correct.
But after you started nutrition,
Yes.
their blood sugar went
Yes.
down.
So yeah, a few of the MD physicians who are now, most of them do believe that nutrition plays a very important role. So they would ask their patient to start with a nutrition therapy, and that's when patient come to me. I have seen that yes, diabetes, hypertension, even kidney disorders. It makes a nutrition plays a major role not only in reduction of the medications and the doses, but in some cases it also causes, at least the type 2 diabetes, it does help in reversal. Type 1 is cannot be reversed, but type 2 definitely can be reversed.
Interesting. Now, how long does it take for a doctor to become a nutritionist? What kind of education is needed? What kind of degree, certificate? How does one go about that?
So, in India, there are plenty of courses that are doing the rounds. There are a lot of online courses, there are a lot of offline courses as well. I recommend that not to go for a short certificate course because it does not give you complete knowledge about nutrition. In most of these courses, what is happening is the focus is more on only the calorie intake and calorie burning. It is not the complete aspect of the food, the nutrients are not covered. So, as a doctor, we need to look at food from a clinical point of view. How we are going to use food into as a therapy. The therapeutic benefits of food is what is required. So, for doing that, one needs to do either a master's degree or you do a PhD, which takes around 2 years. Depending upon from which university you're doing it, they have their own criterias. If you do not have a degree in any nutrition, then you are required to take a short course first in a small nutrition course and then enter the MSc or the PhD course. So, but yeah, 2 years is minimum that is required. But this 2 years is worth the time, worth the effort, because the knowledge that you gain is a complete knowledge about food, right from how this the from the micro biochemistry to the microbiology to the applied physiology of the food, how it impacts in various diseases, how cooking or the preparatory methods have an impact on the food that we are eating. It covers everything. So, as a doctor, I feel that if after being a doctor and you're serious about taking nutrition as a secondary skill set for yourself, then I would say that we need to go beyond weight loss programs, and we need to be clinicians and help patients with their as a clinical therapy. So, what we call it is medical nutrition therapy (MNT), which we use for most of these lifestyle diseases, including diabetes, heart disease,
Right.
kidney disease, even cancer is covered under MNT.
Now, does this only involve theoretical education, or is there a like we have an internship as doctors?
Yes, yes. So you have to do a compulsory 3 month internship in a proper hospital, which is minimum 25 bedded hospital. So you get an IPD exposure as well as an OPD exposure.
It's very much legitimate practice that.
Yes, absolutely.
Great. Now, coming to the topic, what exactly is medical nutrition therapy? This sounds like a very technical term, so just to simplify it for the audience.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is just a term we are not aware about. Medical nutrition therapy is a science-backed solution that we give to our patients to manage their clinical diseases. They are given prescribed, tailor-made or customized, individualized nutritional plans, which are prescribed by qualified professionals. It helps majorly in diseases like diabetes, blood pressure, thyroid, PCOD, kidney disorders, cancer. And how MNT helps you is four main things where MNT does play a major role. Is one is it helps you be symptom free, and it helps you manage your disease better. Second being that it improves your energy levels, it improves your mood, it improves the quality of your life. Number three being it reduces your dependency on medications. And number four, it is cost effective because it lowers the cost once your medications are less, and of course, it prevents complications. So your overall, it helps you, and with the overall managing of the disease, even preventing the complications.
Uh, Once you become a medical nutritionist or once you become a nutritionist, how do you continue your education or learning? Like doctors, we have CMEs and continuing
Correct.
education. Is there something like that in nutrition?
Yes, now in India we have specific nutrition societies, we have specific organizations who are doing a lot of research in nutrition, and I'm fortunate to be a part of a few of these organizations. They are conducting annual conferences, or there time to time seminars and webinars that are happening, which they share their updates. Most of them are into who are seeing patients in hospitals, and they're doing research with nutrition. So they share their research, and it benefits us when we attend these, that we get knowledge about what is happening. Food is again a very evolving element. We are every day there is an influx of new food trends, new diets that are coming in. And as doctors, we need to be aware and need to be sure the difference between what is a fad and what is a fact. Patients do come, doctor, we saw so and so on social media. Is this true? If we are not aware, we will not be able to give the right advice to our patients. And the way some people on social media, they claim certain food products to be superfoods, or the way they claim that a particular diet is very effective. Well, there is no backing from science. These are not research, these are not science backed. So patients are not aware about this. So as doctors and as nutritionists, we need to keep ourselves updated about these things. So yes, attending these workshops or attending these seminars is important, and being in touch with the specialists in the field who are doing continuous research in this field is very, very important. Also, that in one of these seminars when I've attended, I came across something called as onco nutrition, which a couple of years ago I was not aware of, even after I had done my nutrition course. So I was not aware that there is a separate nutrition for cancer patients. So something in when I was attending, and I came across this term, and I decided to learn further and take a certificate course in onco nutrition. I think we were one of the first batch from whom who learned onco nutrition. Today it is a separate master's degree, which is
Wow.
a proper 1 or 2 year course, which is conducted in Tata Memorial Hospital. But back then, we were like one of the first few batches which we did it online, and then we had case studies and everything that we had to do. So yes, as doctors, as nutritionists, unlearning and relearning is very important.
So it's not just about continuing education, but there is certification, recertification,
Yes.
masters, beyond masters.
Yes.
That kind of thing is also there.
Yes,
Then that talks about the depth of nutrition as a science.
as a science, yes.
Fair enough. Now, you use the word onconutrition, and yes, a part of the podcast is going to be about diet and cancer. How is it different from any other branch of nutrition, or let's say, as a nutritionist? Because when you go to the hospital, I am not aware if a patient who does not have cancer has a different diet vis-a-vis a patient who has cancer.
Cancer.
What are the differences that audience can understand about?
See, when you have diabetes, you are more or less, what you're supposed to eat. Even as a patient, they are aware. Don't eat sugar, don't go for refined carbs. They are aware about basic things. But cancer, every cancer, whether you have breast cancer, whether you have stomach cancer, you have endometrial cancer, you have a head and neck cancer, each cancer is a separate diagnosis, is a separate disease. Each diagnosis of cancer requires a separate nutritional intervention, a separate each patient has a special needs depending upon what part of the body is affected with cancer. Again, what therapy is going on, whether they are under chemotherapy, whether they are under radiation therapy, whether they have to undergo surgery. So pre-surgery the diet changes, post-surgery the diet changes, the complications are different post-surgery. But one thing that is common amongst all cancer patients is malnutrition, where the patient is losing weight, patient is losing muscle mass. So we need to make sure that the patient does not lose too much of weight, because otherwise they are not able to complete the treatment that they are taking, whether it is radiation or chemo. If the weight loss is significant, then the doctor, the oncologist may not be able to complete the course of radiation or the chemotherapy that the patient is on. So we need to, as nutritionists, we need to make sure that the patient does not lose too much of weight. Plus, there are a lot of side effects with these treatments that are there. So nutrition here in onco nutrition, one of the role that food plays is minimizing the side effects, whether it is dysphagia, whether it is loose motion, whether it is nausea, whether there is loss of appetite. So, onco-nutrition per se will be a completely different entity, and we cannot. That is why today there is a separate course that is very justified, because just being a nutritionist and being an onco-nutritionist, there's a huge difference.
So it is not just about giving nourishment or the required nutrients to the cancer patient, but somewhere there is a preventive role. Somewhere it would supplement or rather complement the ongoing radiotherapy,
Correct.
chemotherapy.
Correct. And reduce the side effects.
Is something which is very interesting
Yes.
because then the minute you say the word cancer and radiotherapy or chemotherapy, the first thing that comes is side effects. But I am not sure people know that with the right kind of nutrition, you can actually help.
Yes, and they are able to complete the therapy, that is, which is very
It
important.
is true. I mean, once you complete the therapy, then the possibility of recurrence of that
Yes,
cancer.
and the quality of life also improves. The recovery is better. Your immunity becomes better. There is better tissue repair with the right kind of food.
True.
So all of where this nutrition plays a very important role.
This makes sense. How many of you in the comment section, please mention, were aware of something like this? Have either heard of this, or probably any of your relatives or someone of you who has actually undergone medical nutrition therapy for cancer? Do mention that. It will be very interesting to know about the awareness that people have.
Yes.
Uh, what are the common food and nutrition related challenges in cancer patients, and how will diet help? If there are any particular case studies, or if you could just segregate and give some examples from your own practice.
So one is very common is loss of appetite. So patients, most of cancer patients, they have loss of appetite because of the treatment going on. They have changes, taste changes. They will have the altered taste. They will have no taste. So there is a complete reluctance toward even taking food. They don't even want to accept food. Two, what we see in because of chemo, because of radiation, a lot of patients develop dry mouth. They develop mouth ulcers. So certain types of food irritates. So they are not able to consume food. Even if they want to, they are not able to. Even if they feel like eating, because it irritates their mouth, or their, that the sensation is such that they are not able to tolerate food. Then most important, what we see is difficulty in swallowing, dysphagia that we call. Now, this is something that is not visible. As a doctor also it is not visible. As a patient it is not visible. As a relative it is not visible. So even if the relative is trying to feed, the patient is not able to swallow. Now that is a disability which is not visible. So your nutrition plays a very important role, because we have guidelines wherein we there is a particular thickness, there's a particular texture, there's a particular viscosity at which the food has to be administered to the patient. And if it is administered at that thickness and at that with the proper texture, then the patient is able to swallow the food well. And and then uh, because they are not able to take too much of food at one go, so we need to make sure that every bite that the patient is taking, it is nutritionally dense, it is protein rich, it has all vitamins and minerals. So these are the challenges that we see when we are treating cancer patients. Another thing is, if supposing the patient has stomach cancer or he has esophageal cancer and we are using tube feeding. So now in tube feeding again there is blenderized meals. We're not able to give through the mouth. Patient sometimes tolerates the food, sometimes does not tolerate the food. And the food that the blenderized meal that you're giving has to have complete macronutrients as well as micronutrients, whether it has to be rich in good quality carbs, good quality proteins. It has to have some amount of fat. It has to have some amount of vitamins and minerals, so that the patient is able to thrive better and able to complete the treatment. And gradually, we are able to take them off the tube and maybe transition them towards oral feeding. So yes, like I said, the cancer again is a very vast subject, and every cancer we have to study as a different disease.
So, I mean, there is no that for cancer patient is equal to this kind of diet.
No.
Even in different types
No.
of cancer, everything.
No. So like I mentioned, like supposing you have hypertension, you need to reduce your sodium intake. But in cancer, every patient needs a very customized, a very individualized dietary intervention, a dietary assessment first and foremost, and accordingly we have to prepare. And again, pre-treatment, post-treatment, again the dietary needs also change, and accordingly we need to change the food intake also for the patient.
It's I think now it talks about the depth of the science into cancer.
Cancer, yes.
Therefore, the deep impact that a medical nutritionist or an onco-nutritionist would have in cancer. Now, coming to common queries that we often hear is if there is any food that can prevent cancer, or if you must have heard recent claims that food has
Yes.
actually cured cancer.
No, there is no food that can cure cancer, or there is no one food that can prevent cancer completely. But there are multiple foods that if you take them in your regular diet, it can help you lower your risk of cancer. For example, a food rich in antioxidant, a food rich in dietary fiber. So these are the foods which will help you lower the risk of cancer. uh, I personally feel that our Indian meal, our Indian traditional meal that we are eating, which is rich in Indian spices, our thali is completely
Hmm.
balanced. It has proteins, which has fiber, it has a good amount of fat, and all vitamins, minerals covered. So I think that something like that is very important. Most of our Indian spices have cancer fighting properties. What you mentioned about is one of the claims about turmeric. Turmeric has an active ingredient called curcumin, which is, yes, which has, it is proven that it has cancer fighting properties. But just having turmeric or just consuming a lot of amount of turmeric will not cure you of cancer, or it is not a sure shot claim that you can prevent cancer by taking turmeric. It is a overall thing. What all the other foods that you're taking, apart from just food, how is your lifestyle? The overall lifestyle also plays a role in whether you will get cancer or whether you will be treated with cancer. So there is no one magic bullet towards curing or preventing cancer. But yes, having a balanced meal, incorporating different types of fruits, vegetables, and all your different type of spices in your diet will make sure that you will can prevent cancer. And even when we are managing or when we are treating, giving therapy for cancer patients, we include most of these uh, ingredients in them. Millets again being one of those, which was one of the ancient food that is now again into limelight. And yes, millets also are completely nutritionally dense because they are high in dietary fiber. They have good quality carbs. They are high in protein. They are high in a lot of vitamins like magnesium, phosphorus. So they are very rich in antioxidants as well. So of course the research is still on. We still do not have a complete answer whether how much role millets or any other spices would play in completely curing or treating cancer. But yes, including all of this has benefited a lot of our patients. But we cannot claim that any particular food can completely cure any particular disease, not just cancer. Even if you're talking about any other disease like diabetes, also there is no one food that is 100% sure that will cure diabetes. That's overall lifestyle. You have a balanced lifestyle and you have a good nutritious food. That is what is going to help you prevent any disease.
So there is hope in food, and in that too, household food. You don't need any extraordinary,
Yes,
like
yes.
buy some exotic
No,
vegetable
no,
or
no,
fruit.
no. Medical
It is so
nutrition
possible.
therapy or any such therapy will not ask you to go buy exotic food ingredients. It is whatever is in your kitchen, whatever is locally available, and that is how you use them to uh, treat or to manage your whatever disease conditions you're going through.
Now the other side of the food story. If there is any food that actually causes cancer.
Lot of foods can cause cancer in today's time because we are into globalization, and there is we are abundance of food with us. With that, the increasing population and the increasing amount of convenience food that we are seeing these days, that is the processed foods. So your processed foods, processed meats are something that can increase your risk of having cancer. Apart from that, any foods that is high in preservatives, all of the packaged foods that we see today are very high in preservatives. So these high preservatives, foods which a lot of additives like your food colorings, or a lot of, you'll see it contains, there are some numbers, there are some codes. So sometimes there are a lot of additives that they're using. So all of this can be can cause or can increase your risk towards cancer. One more is your charred foods, the foods that are exposed to very high temperature without any filter. So when you're barbecuing foods, barbecue foods, which you directly expose them to a very high temperature, so those are charred. So that is what it irritates, and it can lead to, it increases toxins in your body and can increase your risk of cancer. Again, foods that are fried in the same oil, where the oil is being used throughout, being heated continuously, and the food is being cooked in it, or you using the oil for frying. So those things, those habits can increase your risk again. Uh, Right now, what we see is majorly the culprit being refined sugar and your refined carbs, which is present in almost every packaged food. So these foods again are a big risk not only towards obesity and diabetes, but also they can increase the oxidative stress in your body and can lead to chances of cancer in future.
How does one manage, like, it almost, I felt some time ago until I spoke with you, is that outside food is equal to cancer, whereas you said it could increase the possibility. So how
Yes.
does one balance?
So, if your major diet composes of eating good, wholesome food which is cooked either at your home or either at a place where you know there is fresh food being cooked every day, then the chances are less. Once in a while, in today's time, we all have to eat out. We are,
Great.
uh,
Yes.
because the world has become such a small place, we are traveling. People who are working, they have to meet their clients, or they are going out for some office work or for some seminars or something. You are bound to, you are, today's every all social events are taking place in hotels.
Right.
Nobody is now, we don't have house parties as much as we have.
Right.
We meet outside. So once in a while when you're eating out, that is fine. So it's not that कि एक बार आपने बारबेक्यूड फूड खा लिया कि आपको कैंसर हो जाएगा, ऐसा नहीं है. बट रिपीटेडली इफ यू आर डूइंग इट. अच्छा, along with that, how is your otherwise your lifestyle is? How is your sleep? What kind of exercises are you doing? How much physically fit you are? How much stress levels? What are your stress levels? Whether you are having any other habits like alcohol consumption, smoking. So all of this together will define whether whether you will get some disease in future or not. So it is not just having good food or just having bad food. It is your overall thing. It's a whole picture that you have to take into consideration, not just one particular food item.
Fair enough. So आज अगर कुछ खाया तो tomorrow we are not
No,
going to die
no,
and
no, no.
they
It's
show
not
it
like
on
that.
Instagram.
No. So in fact, I also I there are some people say cheat days. I say don't call it a cheat day. If your diet has been good, otherwise you can enjoy once in a while a treat for yourself. If you believe that okay, today it's your child's birthday and you have to have a cake or a pastry, go ahead. Don't feel guilty. The moment you feel guilty, you are actually trying to create harm for your body. Don't feel guilty. If you've been able to follow a good diet throughout, say, even as for children we say Monday to Friday आप अच्छा खाना खा लो, जो मम्मी देती है वो खा लो. Saturday Sunday में you can then have your once in a while that you, today's kids they like pastas or burgers.
Right.
So then you can give them that, one day you can give them that one meal a week or two meals a week. You can afford to give them whatever they like.
That's quite relieving for all of us. Otherwise, what about milk and milk products? This common myth that
Yeah,
goes
so
around.
there's a lot of myths around milk and milk products. No, milk and milk products don't cause cancer. In some patients, like for example, when we are seeing PCOD, PCOS patients, therein sometimes we have to minimize the intake of dairy, per se milk, not just other dairy products, but milk per se. And because of the hormonal imbalances, so we try to minimize the consumption of milk in those patients. But overall, milk does not cause any other problem. So milk, because it is rich in calcium, it is rich in protein. So milk is consuming milk moderately will not cause any problem.
I mean, on the contrary, because milk has so much nutrition, would it not help cancer prevention? Because they are
Help, I'm not sure, because yes, it is rich in protein, it is rich in calcium, so definitely it becomes a part of your meal. But when you say help, no, in today's time it becomes that itna liter ka doodh pilo to. So we don't say that it helps, but it you can have it as a part of your meal and without any fear of it causing cancer or it increasing your risk towards cancer.
that's
Again, curds are very good because curds is a probiotic.
right.
So yogurt or curds, they are good. We do recommend to our most. I mean, it's very good for your gut health. So if your gut health is good, your overall chances of any disease becomes better. Even if you, when we see most of the patients today, everything is related to the gut. Every disease is somewhere related to the gut. So the gut health is very important. Plays a very crucial role. And in Indian diet, curds play a very important role as a probiotic.
It's quite ancient, right? I mean, we have been hearing about Lord Krishna and the
Yes,
milk products.
milk products.
We have heard of it. It seems like it is ages old, included in our diet. It's part of our
Part of
culture.
our culture, part of our diet since thousands of years.
Well, that was the myth about milk and cancer.
Yes.
Uh, when should a family doctor or perhaps any specialist, particularly an oncologist, know when should you refer your patient to an
On
onconutritionist?
nutritionist. I would say the earlier the better. Moment the diagnosis is made, I think we should consult an onco-nutritionist. Reason being, whatever therapy has been planned for the patient, whether it is chemotherapy, whether it is radiation, or whether the patient has been planned for surgery, the weight loss starts very early on. It's one of the main signs of cancer when we see this, one of the first signs. Two, if the patient goes into cachexia mode, that is muscle loss,
Hmm.
then they are not able to complete or they are not able to even withstand the treatment. So nutrition, when you the nutritional assessment and the nutrition planning, when we start early on in such patients, we see that they are able to tolerate the treatment better. They are able to complete the treatment. Also, they are able to reduce. We are able to reduce the side effects of these therapies that are there, and the quality of the patient's life definitely improves. The immunity improves. Most of cancer patients, we know that their immunity is at risk and they are constantly under the they can get infections very fast. So if their immunity is better, and then they're able to live better. Also, the good nutritional food will help them with tissue repair as well. It reduces the oxidative stress. So overall, yes, the early on, and nowadays I think most oncologists are working with the onco-nutritionist, or at least they advise the patient that you meet a nutritionist to start with, because you will need somebody to guide you towards the right kinds of food and the how to go about once the therapy starts.
Let's again, the earlier the better is.
The earlier the better. The moment the diagnosis has been made, I think that's when you should consult a nutritionist.
Fair enough. Uh, what kind of education, according to you, is required? Now, it seems that not just patients but doctors would also need this kind of education, but patients and the relatives in particular, because they are those who are in that everyday cycle of, like you said, that feeding a particular patient, ensuring that
Yes,
with the tube and all that, it has to go the right way.
correct.
What kind of education is required? And because you are also a patient educator, part of your work, what do you have to say about this? About how do you reach out to patients and how can they be empowered?
So, patient education in today's time is very much necessary, because most of our diseases today that we are facing are because of our lifestyle errors. So, whether it is surrounding around diet and nutrition, whether it is surrounding around your mental health, whether it is because of sleep disorders, so or whether it is a physical fitness, so all of these, because we lacking in somewhere in these criterias, is why we are more prone to getting any kind of disease, not just cancer but even lifestyle disorders that we are getting, and we are getting it early on. Now we are seeing that younger patients are younger men, younger women are suffering from cardiac diseases or hypertension, and even we are seeing juvenile diabetes on the rise. So patient education is extremely important, and back in 2016, I had started with patient education programs where I was, like I mentioned earlier, that's how I went into nutrition. I started an organization called CARE. I collaborated with four other doctors who were from different fields. Either one was from physical fitness, one was from mental health counseling, and one was from lifestyle coach. So like that, we were four doctors who took this forward, and we conducted multiple seminars, workshops, live interactions, and the one of the first one that we conducted had almost 200 women who had attended it, which was very impactful, and we could empower a lot of women. In between, because I was busy with my masters and then I did my onco nutrition, I got busy, and care as an organization took a back seat. But I'm restarting care under the name of Care Shakti, and our first webinar will be somewhere in January 2025. I have teamed again with my same team is a part of Care Shakti, and we are going to cover it's a holistic approach, a multidisciplinary approach towards overall wellness. So we cover everything, right from your the food that you're eating, from the mental health, from mindful eating, from sustainability to your physical fitness, whatever is required. Care Shakti basically focuses on women's health and women's wellness. More so, I've always been asked why only women. The reason being, woman is the person who is in charge in any household. She's the one in charge. क्या खाना बनेगा, कौन कौन सा क्लास में जाएगा, which the child goes for which physical activity class, और कौन सा फिजियोथेरेपिस्ट को दिखाना है, कौन से डॉक्टर को दिखाना है. So majorly the woman is in charge of everything, whether she is a mother, whether she is a wife, or a daughter, or a sister, or even a friend for that matter. A woman has that power that she is able to help others and guide them towards the right path, whatever is right for them. But having said that, when it comes to her own health, she will never take that step of taking advice or even going and seeking help. So we here as at Care Shakti, what we plan to do is at least make them understand, make them educate that these are the common symptoms. For example, if a mother is going under menopause, there are hot flushes, she's irritable, she'll experience bone loss, there will be weight gain. So how is she to, one, identify these problems, two, how can she prevent, say, osteoarthritis or osteoporosis that she was going to get into in future? So if she's aware, if she's educated that these are the signs of menopause I'm entering through, okay, I need to take certain supplements, I need to be physically fit, I need to change my diet now. So at least she knows, if she's educated, she will know that. And supposing the symptoms are a little worse, if we have educated them that beyond this point, you cannot treat yourself, you need to seek help of a doctor. Same goes for if her daughter is in puberty. How much is the menstrual pain tolerable? What level of bleeding is okay? What kind of acne? How much of hair fall is okay? So all of this, if she is educated, she knows. Okay, ये normal है. Okay, 2 साल hormonal imbalance होता है post puberty, and the hormones will get balanced, and then it's going to be fine. You don't need treatment. But beyond 2 years, if the daughter has not got into the cycle of regular periods, she knows that something is wrong, and now you need to seek help. So this is what we plan to do. At least the first webinar what I have planned is on hormonal imbalance, which will cover right from your puberty to your menopause, all the different phases that a woman goes through, and what are the signs and symptoms to look out for, and how you can prevent and manage them on your own, and when to seek help from a specialist.
I think certainly this initiative will reach to people. It will obviously make a difference in not just the life of the primary caregiver, Nari Shakti, the women,
Yes.
but at the same time, it will also ensure that the entire family.
Family,
remains healthy. So, where can people reach out to you? Those who want to sign up for this.
So Care Shakti has an Instagram page. It's there on Facebook as well. The website is about to start very soon. And so for all the updates about the coming up webinar, will be all the updates will be available on both Instagram and Facebook page.
Currently, it is only online, as I understand.
Yes, earlier we used to do physical workshop where we would rent a place and I would speak with my patients. But we have done it this time. We have started with webinars so that we can reach to a wider audience and more patients can benefit from this.
Quite interesting, and congratulations for
Thank you.
starting this initiative. We are about to end the podcast, but as part of what we call it as Vartalap motivation, if there is a message you want to send out to everyone who is listening to this. There will be doctors, there will be patients, there will be health enthusiasts who will be listening to this. What would be your message for them?
I would recommend, as a doctor and as a nutritionist, only 3 most important things is, one, remember one thing, that whatever food you are eating, you need to have it in moderation. Don't eat excess of any food. Even the good food eaten in excess becomes a poison. So moderation is the key to good health. To include a variety of foods in your diet. specifically the different types of fruits, the different types of vegetables, the whole grains, include seasonal foods more so. Specifically in India, we see that we are really fortunate that we have different foods for every season, and each of these foods are very rich in a lot of vitamins and minerals and also antioxidants. So yes, include a lot of variety in your foods. Don't stick to one particular diet throughout. Try and include multiple, but good food. Of course, I'm not talking about processed or packaged food, but the naturally available food. So eat more food that comes from a plant rather than foods that are made in a plant. And third being that be mindful about what you're eating, what is the food in front of you. Avoid looking at screens, specifically your mobiles or your television screens. Keep them switched off at least during your main meal times that you are having, so that you know that the food that you're eating, how much you need. You are able to listen to your body. Okay, that I am full. आज मुझे दो ही रोटी में, otherwise in front of the television or in front of a screen you end up eating more, and which your body does not require. Not all days are similar. Some days of your activity is different. Some day you would be more physically active, some day you may have not been physically active. So your body requirements are also different on every day. So depending upon that, only if you have connected with the food in front of you, only then will you be able to judge what your body requires. So moderation, being mindful, and including a variety of foods is what I would like to tell all my viewers here, that please incorporate at least these three things to begin with.
And I would like to add one more thing, that if there is any slightest doubt about nutrition, or if you are having a problem, please consult a nutritionist.
Yes,
Don't
yes.
take up-
Don't see on social media and start practicing it. Sometimes it can be harmful. Not all of the claims that they make on social media are scientifically proven.
One question, sorry, I mean we have concluded, but still, how should someone choose a good nutritionist? How would one know? Because there are so many nutritionists. With all due respect, all are doing good work, but if there is a way to find out who is the right nutritionist for you.
So the highest degree for a nutrition in India is a registered dietitian, what you call a RD. So one, you need to look out for RDs. They are the ones who have been, like I spoken about, that medical nutrition therapy. They are the one who are well versed with it, and they are not into just looking at food from a calorie point of view, but looking at food as a whole. So look out for, you one needs to be aware of the degrees. What degree is basically you're supposed to look out for. So one is RD, then comes your PhD in nutrition, then comes your MSc in nutrition. These three, I would say, are the top three which right now are there in India. Apart from that, there are a lot of certificate courses which I would recommend not to uh, go for, because we don't know how much they are clinically oriented and how much scientifically proven food trends are they following.
That's quite interesting. That was a wholesome podcast that we had, and a lot of good and right advice we just come across. That is the whole purpose of Vartala, where the expert is going to talk on that subject where the person is expert in. Thank you, Dr. Kruti, for being part of Vartala.
Thank you for having me over. It was nice to share my point of view also. Thank you.
All right, thank you all audience, and we will meet again soon with another topic. And probably I have a couple of other questions for Dr. Kruti. Maybe we can take it up in the next podcast. One is because we talked about milk, one is veganism, and second thing is something about how can we use day-to-day foods, because all of us may not be able to afford that kind of very high.
Correct.
Again, this is my perception. Maybe we can talk about general.
Yeah, so the nutrient dense foods that are easily available, locally available, and seasonally available.
So it's quite doable. I mean,
It's very much doable. Yes,
exotic
yes. No,
foods
we
and-
don't need exotic foods. We don't need exotic products to follow a good nutrition and to keep your health, to keep yourself healthy.
Okay, great. So that way, diet is not expensive in that sense.
No.
Great. All right. Thank you, Dr. Kruti, once again, and we conclude today's episode. See you all again.